Good morning. Welcome to the Thurston County Board of County Commissioners Agenda Setting Work Session for Tuesday, August 8th, 2023. It is 9:22 a.m. My name is Ty Mentzer, Vice Chair of the Board. Chair Commissioner Mejia will be here shortly. To my left is Commissioner Gary Edwards. To his left is County Manager Ramiro Chavez. To my right is Assistant County Manager Robin Campbell, and we have Assistant County Manager Rob Gelder on Zoom. For public virtual attendance, you may follow along on the Thurston County YouTube channel. Our first order of business this morning is to review the draft agenda for this afternoon's meeting, which will be called to order at 2 p.m. We'll have Pledge of Allegiance to be led by Commissioner Edwards. We'll approve the agenda and allow the public the opportunity to address the board, followed by County Manager's update. Any questions or comments on any of those items?
No, sir.
Okay. Then we'll have a consent agenda, which will only contain one item. It's a Sheriff's Office item, Lake Lawrence Regatta application.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair. The board reviewed this item last week. This is a yearly event in which the Sheriff's Office reviews an application for an event in Lake Lawrence. This is an application submitted by the Seattle Outboard Association for a hydroplane race on Lawrence Lake. They will be held on September 15th through the 17th. The Sheriff's Office has looked at the application. They have met all the requirements and they're recommending approval in today's agenda.
Questions on that, Commissioner?
No, I might state they've been doing it for over 60 years and haven't had any problems yet.
Okay, there's that item. Thank you, Chief Brady. Department item, first one is Auditor 4A, approval of the voucher list for week of July 24th.
Yeah, for your consideration, Commissioners, there is a, for you to approve the voucher list for the week of July 24, 2023 for a combined amount of $4,863,377.80. This particular item is in your department item for your consideration because we still have some small expenditures related to the tenant improvements in this building.
Do you have the page number? You usually give a page number.
I'll get that information.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Thank you.
Okay, very good. Let's go to item 5, Information Technology. I have our Director of IT here, Sherry Ilg, and the item is renewal of annual maintenance and 300 additional Duo licenses to enhance county cybersecurity.
Cybersecurity, yes.
Okay.
So, Commissioner, you review this item, as you stated, Mr. Vice Chair. This is a, the duos, as we call the multi-factor authentication. This is an application we have been using for the last 3-4 years, I believe. And this is an element in which allows additional security when any county employee logs into the county system. What is happening right now, for instance, I use, and I think you do the same when you log into your computer, you get a notification on your county cell phone. And that is really the dual approach. You click on your phone and then you get access to the computer. We have been implementing this approach for and again for the last 3 years, slowly but surely, and that these particular items will consolidate all the county employees to get and use this application. It is a couple of nuances, for some of us who have been issued a county cell phone. This application is a county cell phone, and we'll use this tool on the county cell phone. There is an option for the employees who can fully use the same application on their personal cell phone. We understand that perhaps some employees may be a little concerned that perhaps they don't want to put any county business on their personal cell phone. So we have an option that is a QB key. They can use that to access the same way. And again, this is for the amount of $64,782.94. And this is already included on the budget. So right now, Sherry is not requesting additional budget appropriation for this item. Sherry?
Yeah, we are very close to rolling it out for the entire county, which we need to do in order to maintain our cybersecurity insurance. That's a requirement of continuing with our cybersecurity insurance through the Washington County's risk pool. So our goal is to have it done by the end of the year, and with 300 additional licenses, we anticipate we'll be able to cover the remaining employees. And then this includes the annual maintenance for those 300 plus all the ones we currently have.
Commissioner Edwards?
I guess I would just follow up with that, being I'm the county's representative on the risk pool. And this continues to be a bigger and bigger concern. And we all see what happens when an organization does get hacked and the grief that it can cause. And so this is getting to be just one more of those requirements to make sure we're being diligent about preventing that type of an incident. And consequently, hopefully there would not be a claim against the insurance that the county is carrying. So that's it for me. Thank you. It's a problem. Part of doing business now.
It is.
Okay, I don't have any questions. Thank you. Item 6A is a Public Health and Social Services item, Amendment 15 to the Washington State Department of Health Consolidated Contract. And who's up? County Manager.
Let me frame, and I believe we have public health staff to answer any questions you may have some. As you may recall, the board authorized back in January 11, 2022, what we call is the umbrella contract. The consolidated contract, also known as the CONCON, and that this umbrella contract allows the county to receive money through this period of time through many different amendments. So for you this afternoon, for your consideration will be to consider approving amendment number 15. And this amendment number 15 includes an additional $2,788,399 for a combined amount in this contract of $16,518,262. And again, the performance of this contract that we have right now is from January 1st, 2022 through December 31st, 2024. This particular amount is really related to receiving the money associated with the public health functions that we do. And that really is the foundational public health money that's coming under this contract. This will be for the upcoming year. I believe the board is well familiar in the process as to how this particular funding to the consolidated contract has been set aside, and a portion of that is also part of the Board of Health. And I believe some of the members of the Board of Health are working with the budget staff to bring recommendations to the board, not to approve all the funding, but I believe it's in the order of $300,000. The subcommittee, the financial subcommittee of the Board of Health will be providing recommendations to the Board of Health and eventually recommendations to the Board of County Commissioners for final approval. Any questions?
Yes, that $2.7 million, is that earmarked for any specific expenditure at this point in time?
Yes, sir.
And I know it's gonna have strings attached to it, and it requires expenditure through the health department. But what are these dollars planned on being used for?
Yeah, we have provided, the overall activities in which this funding by statute needs to be utilized. And there is a specific activities. I can probably give you in detail what those activities are before this afternoon. I'd be more than happy to do so. It may be public health staff, they can probably bring back what specific activities under the foundational public health the county is required to fund. And that's what I'm talking. There's a little bit of flexibility on this funding, and that flexibility, as the board agreed, is to work with the finance subcommittee of the Board of Health to provide recommendations. But again, it was in the order of about 300,000. The rest, I don't know if you may recall in the last budget cycles, the board has been exercising your direction and approval as to where the rest of the money should be allocated. Jen, any additional perspective on this?
No, I can gather more information if you need, but that was well summed.
I guess my concern is that we had amendment 14, I think it was, month ago or so, 2 months ago, maybe.
Maybe, yeah.
So I don't recall making any specific dollar amount commitment if new money was to come in after we made that, after we received money on that number 14. So that's what I'm trying to get a handle on, is how have we dedicated that money to a certain expenditure, that new money that's 2.7, without the board having taken a specific vote on that?
The board has taken a specific vote. So staff doesn't have the authority to deviate from board's direction.
I know, but we didn't know
So
that
the-
we didn't know this money was
Yeah.
coming.
So what I'm trying to say is that the consolidated contract and the CONCON not only serves the umbrella to receive the foundational public health. There are many other grants that comes under this contract for specific purposes. And the board has been informed in every single amendment as to what those purposes and intent of those additional money will be. When I'm trying to send this new money, there is specific criteria. The board is bound to fund under this foundational public health. And that is in the statute. And we'll bring that information this afternoon as to what that criteria is. Unfortunately, the board does not have the latitude to deviate from that specific criteria outlined in the statute.
Can I ask this follow-up to Commissioner Edwards, because I got confused here. I thought, is this delivery of money we would have contemplated having at the time we made our decisions amongst those priorities? Or, Commissioner Edwards keeps talking about new money that we didn't think we were getting, and that wasn't my understanding of this situation.
Remember that some of the decisions that you made in the last year related to foundational public health is an ongoing decisions. And this is part of that, the ongoing decisions they already made as part of the budget.
So the former of what I said is accurate, that this is money that we would have expected to come in to fund
continue
these
to fund.
ongoing things that we
The decisions they already made.
prioritized. It's not a new,
There's no new money, there's just continued funding. And that was the beauty of the foundational public health, is because the state has made an effort to continue to fund those elements under the public health umbrella. And again, this is no new money. This is money to continue the efforts they already made decisions last year.
so, I think we're getting caught up with the imprecision of the term new money.
It's not new money.
And that's where I think maybe Commissioner Edwards is confused, and I understand, because I was tracking your questions, but I was trying to figure out, is this something that we didn't expect versus money that is flowing through the expectation we had when we set the priority? And of course, we can shift those priorities, but that would be a change of our earlier decisions.
That will be part of your biennial budget decision. And again, this is to receive the money.
Right.
This is to receive the money.
Which we're gonna have this flow of foundational public health money, and I don't know how it and when it comes in. Is it gonna come in these little, in these, a little, it's not little, but in these chunks over the course of a year? That's gonna confuse board members for.
Yes.
Okay.
The short answer is yes.
Okay,
You're seeing a chunk now because the state just passed their Appropriations Act. And state agencies are now allocating money. they'll be doing that over the next few months. You'll see, when federal budgets are enacted, money comes through the state, so a month or two after those get passed, you see new money. Not necessarily new if we anticipated it, but additional money added to contracts. They contract for what they're appropriated until new appropriations come along.
Well, let me flip this around. What if there was, like the state just realized, oh, we can allocate a lot more money than we thought, and we get this flush of, and they add it to this, like, how will we as the board know that this is now money above and beyond what with the programs that we already agreed to fund?
So that is a good question, as like, for instance, commerce related to housing, that has been specifically the case. You know, it brings additional money and the board has been involved. One is the step that you take for sending housing to receive the money under this contract. And the next step, you hear stuff as to how you can probably divvy up or set aside or distribute the money. In this case, if for any reason we get additional public health, the additional money will continue to be on those specific programs that we need to fund. And I think the question will be what else you can do beyond the decisions that you made last year.
Will somebody at public health be flagging this and coming to the board saying, you know what, this is more than what we anticipated based on the programming you guys authorized, so you have latitude to expend in one of these other 11 buckets?
Yes,
Okay.
yes, so part of the budget process is anticipating how much money we think we're gonna receive in grant awards so that the board can make holistic decisions at the time you set a budget. But then if something comes along that's above what's in the budget, the department should be flagging that, and that's when opportunities come to the board to say, we'd like to spend this additional money this way,
Thank
when
you.
we have the latitude.
And the appropriation for this year is a little bit higher than the last year in foundational public health. And that is an opportunity for the board to make the decisions that are the biennial budget. But again, in here, this item is for the county to receive the money. The decisions that you need, whether you want to continue with the decisions that you made last November on the foundational public health is still on, that's part of your decision this upcoming November, fall. So by accepting this money, we're not boxing the board in any expenditures. And this item does not include any expenditures.
Commissioner Mejia?
Oh, I'd like to have a follow-up on that if I could.
Go ahead.
I'm not even contemplating not accepting the money. That's not the issue. I guess my concern is that if we made a decision back in November, December, whenever you mentioned November,
During the budget process.
during the budget process as to how we were gonna allocate money, I do not think that these last, I don't know, 10 budget amendments that have had money coming in, I don't recall that we had discussed during that November discussion, well, we're gonna have $22 million coming. I'm not saying we didn't discuss, we might have new money coming. But my concern is that we've got ongoing issues that could be classified as foundational public health, water issues, the fentanyl deaths that we're now having to address, over 150 of them from in the 2022 cycle. So I'm expecting it's gonna be more than 150 during 2023. And I think we as a board should be discussing what we can do with the new money to possibly solve new priorities. And that's why I keep asking this question about this new money coming in. we didn't know in November how much money that was gonna be. Now, if you're telling me we knew it was gonna be but somewhere between 15 and $30 million, but I don't remember that discussion.
So we did talk about the assumptions that were made for growth in foundational public health funding. That was part of the conversation with Kurt as the board
With
determined.
who? With who?
Kurt Harden
Kurt
was
Harden, okay,
the
good.
acting director at the
Yes,
time.
okay.
And he did talk specifically about the fact that we were anticipating the state legislature to have regular increases over the next few years in foundational public health, and that the budget for our public health and social services assumed a certain amount of increase. Now, I don't remember sitting here today exactly how much that was, but we did include additional money above and beyond the grants that we had last year.
And following up on that, did we at that time say, well, we're gonna put 1 million here and 1 million there, or did we
Yes,
put
you
a
did.
percentage
Nope,
of
you,
what we were gonna get in?
specific dollar
It's
amounts.
specific, you created new positions, you funded new positions, you created new programs, one of which is the PIC program. All that conversation was part of the budget discussions last year. So you created a baseline on the foundational public health by your decisions that you made. And that baseline is an ongoing.
So the real question becomes, how much grant money was assumed in the budget? And the department should be able to tell us that. That's one of the things that we're working with, that my staff, the budget staff, are working with fiscal staff in public health and social services to sort out, is a schedule, if you will, of all grants that are assumed in the budget. And then I would be able to tell you, oh yeah, this $2.7 million was or was not assumed, or only this much of it was assumed. The department should be able to tell you that very thing.
I guess I'm interested in knowing what that dollar amount might have been.
Yes.
And if we have the possibility of reprioritizing different issues, as long as it falls within the guidelines of foundational public health. We've got that, which one of the teams goes out with law enforcement, for an example?
Scout,
Pardon?
scout team.
Scout, yeah, okay, I think we've got two of them though. We've got
Lead.
the lead team, the scout team. Those folks are going out, and then we're trying to figure out how to keep those individuals out of the criminal justice system and get them into treatment to solve some problems. So it seems to me we were kind of doing that on a shoestring. And if we now have more money to work on these type of issues, I'd like to know about it so we can have a discussion amongst either ourselves here or on the new Board of Health and see if we don't want to reprioritize some of that stuff and I keep going back to the fentanyl and the clean water, because those are two big issues. And I don't see fentanyl getting to be a lesser issue right away. So I think we should be talking about that. I mean, who would have thought a few years back we'd have 150 deaths due to fentanyl, and we're gonna have more this year? And we're hardly talking about it. And I know I always criticize that I don't wanna just spend a lot of time talking, but we do need to talk to get some action going. So that's my concern. So I see Commissioner Mentzer's something going here.
Oh yeah, there's hands everywhere. I'll start with county manager.
Commissioner, those conversations, you will have those conversations during your budget discussions.
Yeah, well, that's
Because-
3-4 months down the road.
Because at this point, you're not making any decisions related to expenditures. And at that point, the decisions that you made as a board last year, that can be undone by you. You can undo everything, decisions that you made in the past.
I'm not asking to undo
So,
anything. I'm
but-
just
but-
trying to think about, can we
Yes.
reprioritize
We-
if we're getting new money?
So we are gonna be bringing information to you during the budget deliberations this fall. So I'm
Well,
trying to understand what is
What,
the
and
unique.
we're gonna have another 100 people die during that lapse in discussion, which that's what bugs me about government. We know what's coming down the pike. Why can't we start planning and doing something ahead of time for a very serious problem? So that's kind of.
Assistant County Manager Gilder.
Thank you. Might I make a suggestion, possibly at one of our upcoming Board of Health meetings, would be to do a presentation about foundational public health per the statute, and really kind of being able to take the time to lay out what the allowable uses are. And that could be a great starting point that will launch into the further conversations around the budget.
So, I mean, we've kind of done that, and I guess I'm gonna piggyback a little bit on what Commissioner Edwards is saying. If we made specific allocations to programs and employees, those have set expenses, and that's based on a projection of the revenue we thought we had. And if that revenue exceeds that, then the board should have the latitude to see where to go with the additional money. I would have expected that to have been implicit and automatic and flagged by public health, and because there was no such flag here, I just assumed, when we discussed this last week, that this was just the normal flow of the money that we expected to get when we made decisions. If I'm learning today, based on Commissioner Edwards' questioning, that this 2.78 million is all or in part of over and beyond the money that we've allocated to the employees and programs, then there should be a way for us to weigh in. And I don't know if that needs to wait for a budget or not. I mean, it could happen in February, and it seems silly that we would wait till, November or December to address that additional money. Where would that money go? What would it be doing? How would it be? So anyway, that seems to me to be reasonable, but I just really don't know what the situation is.
New grant money comes in on budget amendments. That's
Yeah,
one
so
of
we
the
would see it
things
at a
that
budget
we
amendment.
welcome. You would absolutely see it. You wouldn't have to wait for the following year. And it is highly likely, if the money was for some new thing, that the department director would be here saying, hey, I'd like to start spending now. That's not at all uncommon. The difference is, this motion before you today is to amend the contract to cover all of the money that Department of Health is offering to us so we can accept the revenue. The spending side of it is on a different track, and the department absolutely needs to identify any money above and beyond what the board has already authorized to spend and get your approval on how to spend it.
Does that go to your issue?
Yes, very much.
Yes.
I'll go to Assistant Director Freiheit and then Commissioner Mejia.
Yes, thank you. And you're all absolutely correct. What was assumed in November was 2.6 million. This is the 2.7 million, so just a little bit over, that we're bringing forward to you. And absolutely, we'll bring any new money that needs to be decided on to you. This was just from what was assumed last November. And there is opioid work, much of which is happening and funded under FPHS with the task force and with the many other efforts. And so we can certainly bring more of that to the Board of Health. And this is the first FPHS cycle that opioid work has actually been written in. It was never written in before, even though work was happening before. So we can bring, more details to that, but the work is happening.
Perfect, thank you. Commissioner Mejia.
Just kind of on the same wavelength as both of you. I think we really need to start having these conversations. We saw this year that we couldn't spend some of the money, and so we had to be buying computers and furniture, which was needed, but at the same time, it's like, can there be additional planning? So we're not having to go that route again, because there was a lot of, I guess, I received some comments about people about, why we did that. Why is this money being used for computers and furniture when there are other needs related to public health in the community. And so if there's another avenue that we can partake this year, I'm open to that. And if we can start planning ahead, I'm always open to planning ahead and making sure that we have an avenue to go through. So I'm in support of Commissioner Edwards and Commissioner Munster's request.
I think if public health heard what we're saying, and I think Assistant Director Fryhigh clearly did, then I think we're gonna be good, because they're gonna bring that, they're gonna understand what our expectation is, and they're gonna bring those decision points forward at the right time.
Should I just do one quick follow-up for clarification? Maybe I'm kind of slow.
Yep.
But Jen said that we were expecting 2.6 million, and instead we got 2.78 million. So, did we know last year when we made these decisions that at this meeting today, or this month, or last month, that we were gonna receive new funding above and beyond to the tune of $2.6 million so that we could plan out our budget? I don't remember having those kind of discussions into the minutia dollar amount. I remember having general discussions about how we were gonna do things, but I don't know, and I guess I'm asking you, Robin, this question. Did we know that we were getting 2.6, but we got a little more this time around? We got 2.78 instead of 2.6? Was
So-
that budgeted into this whole thing?
I can't sit here in this moment and tell you exactly the dollar amounts that we talked about last November. I'd need to go back and look at the notes and see. I can tell you that we discussed there will be more money, and we had an estimate of exactly how much we thought that would be. So you as a board did indeed say, this much money will be spent in this way, and this much money included an assumption that at this stage, once the state passed a new budget, which they did, that we'd be getting additional dollars above and beyond the current grant level. So I will go back and look at exactly how much those dollars were that we assumed. We're hearing from Jen that we assumed an additional 2.6. This is a little more than that, not much, but I'll go back and confirm those numbers. But I can't tell you exactly what they were without looking back.
Sure, okay, I can't remember much
Well,
in
there you
depth
go.
about the discussions.
I need to look at
But
my
did
notes.
we know 2 months ago that we were getting amendment 14 for X dollar amount? Now we're getting amendment 15 for X dollar amount. Have we got another one coming in September or
Very
October?
possibly.
Well, no, we can't budget on possible. I
We
can't, I don't
do.
get that.
We budget on estimates. That's all the budget is your best guess at the time. And we do budget on estimates.
Did
And
we-
if that
okay.
grant money does not come, we don't spend up to the appropriation. That's what we do all the
Well,
time.
last year, at this point, did we have 15 budget amendments up until this point?
This is not a budget amendment. This
This
is an
is a
amendment to a
contract
contract.
Amendment to a contract, yes.
So this is not a budget amendment.
Did we have 14 amendments to the last budget cycle at this point? And are we expecting?
There's a cumulative amendment since January 1st, 2022, January 11, 2022, since you approved the umbrella contract. And since then, you have approved amendments to receive money with a specific intent of usage. And not every single amendment is related to foundational public health.
Right.
There's many other grants they're coming under this contract for any specific purpose. And again, as Robin has stated, we made the best possible estimate as to what those grants will be. So when we receive additional money, you don't feel in the position to make a budget amendment for every single new revenue. So we make these assumptions when you approve the budget to accommodate for the potential new revenue.
So I feel like the board is in agreement on this particular action item to accept this money.
Oh,
So
for sure.
let's,
For sure.
let's move on, and then we can continue to discuss the right process for assessing the money and the expenditures, because it's not gonna
Yeah,
happen today.
I'm with you 100%. I just want to kind of get a little better understanding how we shift priorities midstream in a 2-year budget. I mean, we can't have these people continue to die on us and not at least be concerned about it and try to make some adjustments. I don't know what the numbers are gonna be, but if 150 last year, I wouldn't doubt it'll be 300 this year. I think that's crazy that we're not trying to enhance different programs. I hate to think that I'm gonna tell somebody's mother, well, we hadn't made that decision yet, we'll make that next year. And they've already had the funeral. And I just don't get why we can't react a little quicker to a very serious problem. So,
Well, I mean, remember, before I was here, you were instrumental in declaring opioid a public
yeah,
health
yeah.
crisis.
Right.
We funded Katie's position, we started the task force, they've put out a plan, we've updated that plan. We're tying that into the settlement money that we're getting. So I mean, the Board of County Commissioners has acted on this issue. It's just, we're seeing a very unique problem with this, the unique characteristics of
Yes,
fentanyl, and
I'm not saying nobody doesn't care.
Yeah.
Don't get me wrong, I'm not trying to point at different ones that we're not doing it right, but we can't do it right if we don't discuss it. We certainly didn't know when we probably did all that we were gonna have 150 people die in 2022, maybe as many as 300 die in 2023. Nobody knows the answer, but gee, at some point, we have to be able to adjust our course of action because we made that declaration. Back when we made the declaration, I want to say there was about 15 that died during that period of time for the opioid overdose. This is an extension of that. It's being called an opioid situation, but in reality, it's other chemicals that are coming in. So,
Katie Strozik, our coordinator on this issue, has got her hand up. Go ahead, Katie.
Hi, Katie Strozik, Opioid Response Coordinator at Public Health. Normally, I know not to chime in on other items that I'm not on, but since this is specifically around opioid response, I did just want to share that we do definitely acknowledge that opioid response is a huge priority. And like Jen said, opioid response hasn't historically been included in FPHS funding. One thing that we did is there's a statewide group that is led by Thurston County and King County around public health response to opioid and overdose response in the state, and that group put forward an FPHS proposal for this funding cycle to get opioid response included for the first time. So there was a response to that priority shift, and FPHS and DOH and all of our state partners did recognize that opioid response needed to be included. So it's really exciting that this FPHS cycle actually allows us to bill for opioid work because it historically has not been included. And we were a primary leader in the application that got it included in FPHS as well.
Because if you remind us, Katie, probably that the board's heard these, at different trainings, the FPHS is it's a term of art, and it relates to sort of functions that only government can perform, if I remember right. So it's not saying it's only the things that are important, because there's lots of things that are really important, but they're just not uniquely government functions. So it's important not to get confused by thinking that, because the word foundational makes it sound like it's the most important thing, but it's really a term of art that excludes other things that would be considered extremely important, but they just don't meet the definition of foundational public health. Is that right?
Correct. Yeah, and the FPHS proposal around opioid response, which was approved under FPHS, recognized that a huge burden has been put on public health to respond to the opioid crisis, and that burden was not there historically, because there's been such a shift in the drug supply from prescription opioids to fentanyl, and there's increasing fatal overdoses, that there really needs to be dedicated money, especially from FPHS, because there's work that public health is doing that other agencies in the community are not able to take on and aren't appropriate to take on.
Okay, got it. Commissioners, any, county manager?
Yeah, I'd probably like to suggest, based on what Katie just stated, maybe she can bring a formal presentation to the Board of Health and provide an update on the opioid response plan. I think there's a lot of work that has been done related to that. And I think it will be good to bring it up to date as to the strategies behind that plan for the Board of Health to really start forming an opinion if there is an opportunity to allocate any additional money to those efforts.
Clerk of the Board of Health, got that?
But
I said Clerk of the Board of Health, you got that on your list? Okay. For our
that,
agenda
so
setting.
that really will be a good hour spent at the Board of Health.
And I really think it's important not only to bring the new Board of Health up to speed, but to let the public know that we are concerned about this issue. That's,
And maybe on your presentation, Katie, just to provide a little bit of history as to when the board approved, opioid to be a crisis, and with the steps that we have taken as a county, as an organization, this leading to this plan, who is involved in this task force, and all that perspective. It will be good just to bring it up to speed to the Board of Health.
and maybe the numbers that go along when we did what.
Yeah.
How many deaths did we have attributed? Because the bottom line is the deaths. That's the thing that we all know really happened. The responses to this issue and that issue, and somebody gets over it. Some getting treatment, some don't follow through on treatment. Those are all important issues, but the deaths of these individuals is a final statistic that shows we are either accomplishing our goal or not. And if not, why not? And how can we readjust our position, I guess.
Dr. Abdamalik is also sharing an opioid-related overdose update during her update today as well, later on in the agenda.
And I might mention that oftentimes it takes 3 or 4 months to get back toxicology. So if we're asking for a number today, that number might be 3 or 4 months shy of what the real number is. But I think we can look at what is suspected to be a fentanyl death and include that, because it gets included later. It kind of keeps the problem kind of tamped down, I think. But anyway, thank you very much, Keith.
Yeah, that's a good point, because there is a lag,
The big lag.
a
Yeah.
big lag on the toxicology reports.
Okay, I'm passing the baton back to Commissioner Mejia because I'm utterly failing at keeping us on track this morning, so
Oh, boy.
go ahead, Madam Chair.
Thank you for
Okay.
indulging us.
So we left off with 6B, is that?
Yep.
Set a public hearing date regarding amendments to the Nisqually Shellfish Protection District Work Program and fixing rates and charges in the district.
Yeah, thank you, Commissioners. This is also an item that you review, and this is related to the item that is up for your consideration under the Board of Health this afternoon. It is related to the Nisqually Henderson Shellfish Protection Program. This particular item is for you to set a public hearing for September 5th, 2023 at 3:30 in the afternoon. We'll be considering the fees and charges related to this district. And at this point, includes a 3.5% increase from the 2023 to the 2024 rates. In the afternoon, when you see the Board of Health item, later on today, I'm sorry, is the same item, but in this case is to consider amendments to the code itself. So it's two different items. The Board of County Commissioners has the legislative authority to implement fees and charges, and the Board of Health is the one who changes the code. So again, this is just to set the public hearing.
And besides the in the 3.5% increase, aren't we also going to talk about reauthorizing the plan?
Yeah,
It's due to
so
expire
here's,
or
it sets the stage for the upcoming fees. And this afternoon, and the Board of Health also set a public hearing. They will change the code to continue with the process.
Thank you.
And both are, because the Board of County Commissioners needs to take that action first, and then the Board of Health will have to change the code. And that order has to be in place. And I believe the public hearing you will be considering setting for changing the code under the Board of Health is for the following week.
Thank you.
Thank you.
September 5th.
Okay, so after, no questions to Commissioner Minister, we're gonna review our standing items, and we will have a Board of Health meeting at 4:30. That's our next item, is the review of the Board of Health draft agenda for our meeting of August 8th, 2023, and I will pass this to the Chair of the Board of Health.
Yeah, I didn't get off.
No, you didn't. Right back.
All right.
Short-lived, Commissioner.
Okay, 4:30, we'll call our meeting to order, approve the agenda. We have opportunity for the public to address the Board of Health. And we have two proclamations for this meeting. One of them is National Breastfeeding Month proclamation. Clerk of the Board, do we have a presenter for that item?
Yeah, Gretchen Toller and her team is gonna be, pardon me, excuse me, on hand to accept.
Here's Gretchen. Anything you need to tell us now, Gretchen?
Good morning, commissioners and managers. Gretchen Toller with Public Health, and we will have Sheila Waterstrat. She is one of our NFP nurses, but she is also the nurse that is funded with a quarter of her time is funded with foundational public health money. If you remember last winter, you approved that to work on breastfeeding initiatives in Thurston County. So she will be here to speak, as well as another lactation consultant from the community.
Questions, Board?
I do
Sure,
have one quick question. Gretchen, are there statistics that show the better outcome from a child that starts out right off the bat breastfeeding, I don't know, for whatever period of time, versus children that do not get that benefit?
Yes, there are statistics to show much better health outcomes.
Okay.
So for both the child and the parent. So it's a important public health initiative.
And so might we hear that at our Board of Health meeting this afternoon?
Yes, you will.
Okay.
And if I
Go ahead.
I was going to say, if I could just tag on to some of the previous conversation around opioids, and I just want to bring forward the prevention side of it as well. So anything we can do to improve the emotional health of our children will pay off in the future with prevention.
Good reminder. Thank you.
Yeah, could I respond to Gretchen? I guess I would encourage you from your position, because you're the start of all of this, if you will. So I hope you would be watching out for what type of prevention measures might we be able to put in place if we were to divert a few dollars to get ahead of the program from this new money that we continue to get in. I mean, I can't think of anything more important. You've heard me say this many times. You know, these young people, kids are 30% of our population, but they're 100% of our future. And we need to do that preventive maintenance, if you will, at the youngest possible age to help them be successful. And so use your imagination. I'm trying to get ahead of what I'm afraid is going to be about 300 fentanyl deaths this year. So hopefully in 20 years from now, we're not counting any of your new clients that are coming on. So.
I 100% agree with you. It's important. It is not every case where somebody ends up, with a substance use addiction, but many, many times there is trauma from a childhood that leads to that. I'm not saying it's 100% in all the cases, but there are many, often that is the case, that individual as an adult, they had experienced trauma as a child.
Thank you.
The second proclamation is National Immunization Awareness Month.
They, pardon me, excuse me, the PHSS has a representative from the Department of Health planning to attend to accept that proclamation.
Okay, any questions from the board?
Thanks, sir.
No, sir.
Okay, let's move on to the first presentation, which is National Suicide Hotline Update. And I don't see Director Bain.
Jane is
He's actually
covering
out of the
for,
office.
Okay,
Jane should
Assistant
be-
Director Freiheit, anything you need to let us know? I know this is going to be presented by one of the representatives of the Thurston Mason Behavioral Health Administrative Services Organization.
Yes, Joe Avalos will be there to present, and he is also the administrator for the OHRS. And so the presentation will talk about the 988 hotline and the Thurston County and Mason response to that.
Questions from the board?
No, sir.
Okay, thank you. Next item will be setting a public hearing regarding sanitary code amendments to renew the designation of Nisqually Watershed Protection Area as a marine recovery area and area of special concern. Jane Mountjoy Venning from Environmental Health. Good morning, Jane.
Good morning. I'm having some computer glitches, so I don't have a camera, I guess. Yes, we discussed it last week, and this is the second part that that discussed earlier, that to renew the Nisqually Marine Recovery Area and Area of Special Concern. There's a piece that the Board of Commissioners does, and this is the piece that the Board of Health does, which is to renew the designation and amend the sanitary code. So those changes are attached.
So the Board of County Commissioners has heard a fair bit about this, but the Board of Health not so much. So are you going to be able to provide kind of a brief overview of what's going on here?
Yes, I can explain it in more detail to the Board of Health this afternoon. We did come to the Board of Health a while back to give an update on the evaluation process that we had done.
Yeah.
So this will be an update on that and what we're asking them this time.
Yeah, I think they did get a presentation on sort of the background of the issue, but the mechanics of this, what we're trying to do here would probably be new to them.
Okay.
Any questions from the board?
No, sir.
Okay. And that'll take care of department items for this afternoon. Dr. Abdulmalik will give a report. Sounds like she'll be including some information on opioid, fentanyl issues. The director will give a brief report, and then, or the assistant director, will that be you, Jen?
Yes.
Okay, you'll be giving a short report after Dr. Abdulmalik, and then we'll adjourn hopefully around 6 o'clock. Back to you, Madam Chair.
So then we'll start with the review of the Board of County Commissioners draft agenda for our meeting of August 15th, 2023. We'll call the meeting to order at 2 p.m. The Pledge of Allegiance to be led by Commissioner Edwards and approval of the Tuesday, August 15th, 2023 agenda. I know Vice Chair Menser will be excused for that meeting.
I'll zooming.
Oh,
I'll be
you're
on
s-
Zoom.
Oh, you'll be on Zoom for this one? Okay.
For agenda setting,
Okay.
I'll be zooming in about halfway through. And then for the board meeting, I'll be present by Zoom.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
Okay, thank you, sir. Okay. Okay, so then there will be an opportunity for the public to address the board and county manager's update.
I will follow up with any items that needs to be follow up based on the public testimony we might receive this afternoon, Madam Chair.
Thank you. There are two consent items, A and B, and they're both the voucher list, and one is for the week of July 31st. And just kidding, the other one is request of council, so let's do 3A.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This is for your consideration, is to the board approve the voucher list for July 31st, 2023 for a combined amount of $4,666,309.42. This is on your consent agenda since we do not have any expenditures related to the tenant improvements on this building. Going back to today's agenda, Commissioner was asked where the expenditures are, so that's in front of you.
Thank you very much.
And thank you to Jamie, very responsive.
Thank you, Jamie.
And the next item is a yearly item the board considers. So under RCW, item 3B, I'm sorry. And this is under RCW 36.22110 and RCW 3956.040. The Board of County Commissions is in the position to cancel outstanding warrants. In this particular case, we have a total of 119 warrants, so we'll change that number because I reviewed the documents, 119 warrants, no 45. Out of the 119 warrants, most of them, 105 are related to jury-related activities. That's when they, we send a check to the jurors and then they'll cash it. And that, the amount varies from 87 cents to all the way to $147. And also out of the 119, 14 are miscellaneous. One has to an individual of $3,900. And that has not been cashed, so we need to retire that as well. So it's a total of 119 warrants, and the total amount is $7,817.09. Any questions?
I do have a question. I understand the numbers changing, but it went from 45 to 119. But the dollar amount-
It was a typo here. It's a typo here.
Oh, okay,
It's a
thank
typo.
you. Good enough.
We'll correct that.
Got it. Thank you.
Because I
No
reviewed
questions.
the backup information, it's actually 119 warrants.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Questions, Commissioner Lansing? This amount, does it go back to general fund or does it go to like a state fund because it's,
This goes to state unclaimed property.
that's what I was wondering, yeah, okay.
That was a question, that same question you asked last year, yeah.
I always.
And
I'm
it sits
wondering.
there until
Till it's claimed.
it gets claimed.
I checked on it after and there's
Didn't have
nothing for me,
anything in
no.
So at some point, somebody logged their names, ooh, I have 87 cents.
I've
From
claimed,
that 4-week jury trial I sat on.
Well, I have gone through that and there's it was probably $1.50. It's closing at an account at a credit union. I think it's more the effort than anything else to claim that, but that's what it's for, that's the system.
pretty easy.
Yeah.
I've claimed money I forgot about from there.
Well, so for the individual who has the $3,900 check.
Yeah,
it's-
it's obviously I cannot name the individual in this, but this one
Be a
individual.
nice little windfall.
Yep. Okay, moving on to department items, central services for a large vehicle surplus service contract.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. This is a little bit of an interesting item. Back in April 2022, the board approved a sole source waiver to sign 1-year contract with Ritchie Brothers. The county has continued to utilize Ritchie Brothers auctioneers for the sale of heavy vehicles equipment since 2015. That seems to be a very good local company, and we have nothing but good experience with them. Well, what happened back in April 1st, 2020, April 2022, the board authorized the waiver for just 1 year. However, we as a staff signed a 2-year contract. And that was probably a little bit of a misstep from the staff point of view. So this particular item is, we asked the board to waive the competitive process similar to what you did in April 2022 for another year. And that will complement the contract that has been signed for 2 years.
Questions, Commissioner Edwards?
I guess my question would be, we've been using them. And that's an auction company to get rid of surplus property,
Lewis County.
heavy-duty surplus
Yeah,
property.
that's correct.
Right. That unfortunately left Thurston County, I might mention, but we
I-
won't
I-
get into
I figured
that.
that you were leading on that
We-
as well,
We
Commissioner.
won't get into that. But my concern is that usually we see something from the internal auditor that says this is okay, or you know, to make those adjustments when we see anything to do with sole source, the bidding process.
So that documentation was provided to you last year, in April 2022, which it was justified going with a sole source.
Yeah, but that was for,
Yeah, but
but we made a mistake somewhere along the line.
Here is the administrative miss that we took. The board approved a waiver for 1 year, and staff signed a contract for 2 years.
Okay,
So we asked the board to waive the competitive process the second year.
Okay.
And that will make the whole process whole. And the justifications as to why you consider in April 2022 to waive the competitive process has not changed, continues to be in place.
and so we're all okay with the attorney, our board attorney, not here, but I mean, somewhere she's gonna review something here and sign off on that. I'm just trying to,
Usually
I'm
is
trying to
the-
keep us from getting in
is
trouble.
the internal auditor who signs on the sole source, and he signed that last year, I believe.
I know, but does that carry through? Is it good for this year, for us taking an action?
Yeah, because the conditions
This
have
year.
not changed.
Good for the whole contract. And it's not a sole source, it's a waiver of competitive bidding for a professional service.
Okay, I mean, I'm not even aware of another outfit that does this myself, and
Well,
Exactly.
that's exactly.
Exactly,
True.
especially it's local.
I'm just trying
And
to keep us from getting in a jam, so.
We're trying to find a way to correct the
mistake.
misstep that was made,
Yeah,
yes.
that's fine, we all make mistakes, but
That's,
I just don't wanna get jammed up over it, and as long as our attorney says, oh yeah, that's okay, then I can probably follow that,
I appreciate that, Commissioner.
okay?
Questions, Commissioner Mensah? No, okay. Okay. Item 5A from the Commissioner's Office is Experience Olympia and Beyond MOU.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. As a matter of a little bit of a background, back in 2014, the Board of County Commissioners established the Thurston Bountiful Byway. And they, at that point, the county was taking the lead in managing the Bountiful Byway. And there was an opportunity to partner with the Experience Olympia and Beyond organization to help us manage and market the byway. I think that was a strategic move. It's probably been in place under their purview for the last maybe 5-6 years, if not more. And they have been nothing but very effective in bringing the Bountiful Byway to a much different level. And I think it fits right perfectly within their mission. But in order for us to partner with them, we need an MOU. And for your consideration is this memorandum of understanding with the county and the Experience Olympia and Beyond to continue to manage this program for the county. This does not include any financial commitment from the county. This is just an operational MOU in which the Experience Olympia and Beyond manages the Bountiful Byway and coordinates with the Thurston County Agritourism Advisory Committee and some of the decisions they made. On the sidelines, as you may recall, the board contributes to the Experience Olympia and Beyond on the yearly budget. And I believe right now the contribution is 40,000, 30,000, I can't remember the number.
that sounds right.
Yeah, so I just want to bring up perspective again, this today is for your next week for your considerations to approve this MOU. Jenica, anything to add?
Thank you for that overview. The only additional piece I would add is there is an additional scope in the MOU where Experience Olympia and Beyond is continuing to administer the county's agritourism advisory committee. And so they're continuing tasks like planning and coordinating and announcing meetings, helping to develop agendas and taking minutes.
No
No
questions.
questions? Questions, Commissioner Mensah?
No, I don't think so.
No questions for me. Thank you. Okay, moving on to Community Planning and Economic Development, item 6A, interlocal agreement renewal for voluntary stewardship program. And 6B looks to be connected.
Yeah, it's 3A, 6A and 6B are connected, and this related to the activities with the voluntary stewardship program. But I do have a question on this first item. This first item is the agreement that we have with the Conservation District, which is the organization who manages the voluntary stewardship program. Andrew, are you covering this item?
I am, and yeah, the first item. Oh, I see. They're backwards on my end. Yes, yeah, I am covering it. So please, what's your question?
Yeah, the dates are off. I believe the dates should be for the upcoming biennium that begins July 1st, 2023 to June 30, 2025, because the action includes the July 1st, 2021 through June 30, 2023, which all that has passed. You know,
I can certainly bring that up to Ashley and make sure that she addresses that by next week if that's a concern.
because the following item is to receive the money from the state.
Mhm.
And that is for the next 2 years.
Right. Okay.
So we'll correct the dates for the first item, commissioners, if that is the case. It seems to me that it needs to be aligned with the following item. And this is, has a total amount of 220,000 to support the work under the voluntary stewardship program. And this funding comes from the state. And we'll cover the item in the next item, which comes from the Conservation Commission. This is a long-standing partnership with the Thurston Conservation District, and the voluntary stewardship program continues to be extremely effective. Again, this item is to have again a contract with the Thurston County Conservation District. And item 6B is to receive the money from the Washington State Conservation Commission for $240,000. And this is again, the period of time is from July 1st, 2023 to June 30, 2025 in terms of the money receiving. But I believe the agreement with Conservation District needs to reflect the same timelines. But we'll confirm that.
And for the record, I just looked at the contracts themselves, and I think the dates are correct there. So I'm hoping the issue is just on the AIS, but we will definitely look into that.
Yep. Okay, that's what I figured. The probably is just the description on the item.
Questions?
And the additional 20,000 that we're getting from the state is administrative overhead?
And to help administer.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you, no questions.
Questions, Commissioner Mensah?
I guess I'm just curious, so are we spending, I mean, minus the admin, we're spending the 220 because that's what the state gives us, or is that is there a formula that calculates that as the right number? How does that number get derived?
The allocation from the state is 240,000. So I know that much. I would have to look at the budget and kind of see.
There's a 10% administrative fees, I believe, they takes about the 20,000.
Right, but I mean, is that because the State Conservation Commission has determined that's the need for us to run this program through the Conservation District, or?
Maybe Andrew can check, but I think it's a
know?
maximum administrative fees that they charge, and I think it's perhaps the 10% maximum.
Well, I'm not worried about, I'm talking about the 220, the
220.
whole thing, like, how are they coming up with giving us 240,000?
Oh, I don't know how the allocation from the state is.
Just curious.
Maybe we can probably bring that back next week, Andrew.
Absolutely.
Good question, I don't know.
Yep.
Thank you.
That's a good question, okay. Okay, going on to item C is to set a public hearing for grand amounts of area plan, PC recommendation.
Yeah, this is a recent item for your consideration, commissioners. As you may recall, you made a determination last week to go with what they call a split approach, in which you will go with the recommended approval of the Grand Mountain Survey Area Plan associated with code changes on 4 land uses. And you'll continue to work on the split approach on 5 additional requests. So this is a long item. This has been in the docketing process since 2017. Between 2018 and 2020, staff held 4 open public open houses. The planning commission's review this item on 6 different work sessions between 2022 and 2023, and they provided recommendations to the board for your consideration. The board reviewed this item back in May 17 as well as August 3rd, 2023, which you provided direction on the split pathway as staff stated. This item is for you to set a public hearing for September 19, 2023 at 3:30 in the afternoon to receive public testimony before you consider approval of those code amendments. Maya?
Only thing to add is that the other 5 land use amendments on the split pathway will come back before the board for an additional public hearing following the Urban Growth Management Subcommittee review and additional environmental review. So they will also receive an opportunity for public comment. This is just to move forward the items that are ready this year.
Questions?
No questions, thank you.
Questions, Commissioner Mensah?
Maya, this may not be a good question for you, but I'll give it a shot. The Director Cummings has mentioned to me, and then he actually brought it up, I'm gonna bring this up because he brought it up in a full board meeting, that a suggestion that we might take sort of a deeper look at visioning the Grand Mound area. And I'm just wondering, from your perspective, what would such a effort entail? Would it be redoing the sub-area plan, or would it be something separate and apart from what the sub-area plan's about? What is it that he's kind of suggesting that we might be able to do in the future?
We can certainly consider a holistic look at the urban growth area boundaries and the zoning within. We will have the opportunity to develop some alternatives with the additional 5 land use requests and the environmental analysis that comes with those. So there might be opportunity there, and there will certainly be opportunity again with the periodic update of the comprehensive plan related all to the housing changes. So just thinking holistically about the zones in that area, if it's meeting the economic and housing needs for the Grand Mound urban growth area. And we do have opportunities not only through these 5 land use requests and their review process, but also through the periodic update that's coming up.
Can I have more questions on that? Okay, we'll move on, thank you, to Public Health and Social Services, item 7A, request for proposals for Developmental Disabilities Department Community Project grants.
This particular proposal, Commissioners, is for you to authorize the request, application, the request for proposals for 2022 and 2025. The Thurston Mason Developmental Disabilities Program would like to go through this proposal, request for proposals to secure the services to deliver programs and projects to our community. This particular funding comes from $1 million from the Thurston County Millage Fund. Also, the county receives from the state an additional $500,000. Also, Mason County is contributing Mason County is contributing $500,000 from their millage fund, and that will be a total $1.5 million included on the request for proposals. They have a couple of objectives on this particular proposal. They will be focusing on education and personal safety to provide services that assist individuals with developmental disabilities in achieving personal and professional goals and developing healthy relationships. The next objective is provide community accessibility and inclusivity to better engage with and support rural and special needs communities to ensure that people are connected, supported, and included. And the last but not least is personal growth and independence. The skill building to find living wage employment and assistance to achieve independence. If the board approves this request for proposals, we'll bring back later on a recommendation as to where you may consider awarding those contracts. Mark Moffett, the manager of this program, is here to answer any questions or add additional perspective.
This is what we do every 2 years to elicit ideas from the community to help fill gaps and better lives for people with intellectual and developmental disabilities. So this is well beyond employment. It can supplement employment. Current programs we have are like rural transportation. We know that's a barrier for employment for some of our clients. So we contract with Coastal Community Action, and they provide a van and they go out and pick up clients and take them to work or to job interviews. That's one of our bigger contracts. So we try to supplement their lives beyond the employment side.
Questions, Commissioner Edwards?
I guess this goes to the county manager. You said that we're gonna contribute $1 million out of our millage fund. And then you gave another dollar amount.
Sorry, is the 500,000 that comes from Mason County millage fund.
Right, but I thought you said another dollar amount there in there, and I didn't get it.
No, it's 500,000, so 1.5 million total.
So it's total, nothing else is going in.
No, that I believe, it's just.
Exactly what you said now, but it added up to more.
Sorry if I confuse you. It's $1 million.
I'm easily confused, so that's.
My apologies.
That's good.
$1 million from Thurston County Millage Fund and $500,000 from Mason County Millage Fund.
And then with those dollars, 1.5, you end up accomplishing your mission.
Yeah, that's right, Commissioner. So lots of different things that we do. Like I said, the transportation, we have courses in healthy relationships to teach clients with IDD, what does a good relationship look like? We also contract with Kakua, who has an art studio. Also with, who is it that we contract? Kakua also has it's a lead program. It's different than the county lead program, but they have students from St. Martin's and Evergreen who tutor clients with IDD on different subjects that they might be interested in. So there's a lot of different things that can happen in this. And so during the RFP process, once all the RFPs are submitted, we have a panel from the community that will vote on them, rank them, and then we'll bring those back to you and which ones that we can fund. So on our panel, there's going to be a client, there'll be a family member or a guardian, there'll be a Developmental Disabilities Administration case manager, and then we have one of our peers from a local county that comes in and sits in on it as well. So it's not us making those decisions, it's the community.
On this millage fund, is it dedicated money earmarked for this particular issue? And is that the total dollar amount that we get in on that millage?
I think there is some millage fund goes to the BHO as well, remember.
There is.
So millage fund goes to the BHO.
I believe it's still 100,000 that goes to
the
BHO, and then the rest of it comes to us for developmental disabilities. And so we use that either on this, or we also can use it on other projects as well outside of the RFP.
It's a very small amount that goes through the BHO. They receive that, and then they also receive the fraction of the liquor revenue that must be spent on behavior.
Can you remind folks where millage fund comes from or what it means?
Millage is property tax.
Okay.
And mill is price per thousand. So it's the rate per thousand in property value. And this particular property tax is a reduction from the calculated levy for the general fund.
And you may remember the last couple of years we had a legislative ask to take the veterans and the developmental disabilities of the overall property tax levy to have a standalone. Right. This is what it is.
That's this money.
That's the money. The
So
Second on that, or-
the current rate is the maximum allowed by law. I think it's 0.1125 per no, this would be the 1.25 cents per thousand in property value. I just did the tax calculation on Sunday.
Because the request, as you may recall, as part of the legislative agenda for the last 2 years, is to take this DD, developmental disabilities, and the Veterans Fund outside of the overall property tax levy to be standalone, similar to conservation futures, road fund. They just have a standalone levy.
So the millage only exists because we've got this law that says we've got developmental disability allocation out of the levy?
Yes. Yeah, so millage is synonymous with property tax. It's just another word that's used for property tax.
But it's a subset of property tax, a tiny subset.
It is a subset of the levy that's calculated for the general fund.
Has that got a 1% cap on it as well?
Oh, no, the, both the, amount for the, DD and mental health and the amount for the Veterans Fund are a fixed, levy rate. So where the general fund levy rate is variable based on the calculated amount of the levy divided by the total property value, I'm sorry, I know it's complicated. So the levy rate for the general fund goes up and down, and the same for the road fund and Medic One and conservation futures. These particular two are a fixed rate that is multiplied by the total value of property in Thurston County.
So let me take you back to last year. And when we received the total valuation of all the properties in the county increased significantly, as you may recall. But actually the property tax coming to the general fund had to be reduced because we need to take those two off the top. And that, I don't know if you remember that conversation. So, and that is probably, because it comes off the top before it gets into the general fund. And that is why we continue to ask the legislature to take those two items out, so they can be a standalone, that you can make individual decisions as to how this rate will be.
Madam Chair.
Go ahead, and then I have a question. No, go ahead, and then I have a question.
I've worked on that with you at the legislature. Since then, I've talked with several veterans groups about this particular issue. I believe the issue of concern for the veterans groups are that they feel they're gonna get pointed at as a cause that could be perceived as detrimental to the taxpayer. So whatever it's gonna take, if we wanna get that through, we need to convince or explain to the veterans groups that this is not gonna be detrimental to anything that's collected for their membership benefit.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I've heard that concern.
You've heard that same thing?
Yeah, and in fact, I got some information to, I believe is the chair of the Veterans Committee at the state level. And I'm planning to reach out to him to further explore what their concerns are, because you're right. The intent of this legislative ask is not to take benefits away from the veterans. And in fact, it provides opportunity for the board to enhance those. Because right now, I believe there is additional capacity on the Veterans Fund the board can exercise. But if you increase the capacity on the Veterans Fund, under current conditions, you take away money from the general fund. That's really what,
Right, and you're just saying take it off the top without having this effect.
right, so you take, and it's standalone. For instance, when you approve the budget, what is 1% increase in property tax, you take an action on the conservation futures, standalone. On the road fund, standalone. And the intent of this legislation that you may also will be for you to take standalone decisions on the DD and the Veterans Fund.
And I do think that that's a doable issue in the legislature if we get this explained adequately
That is correct.
to those individuals that feel they might be having a finger pointed at them as to that this
So,
is.
yes,
caused.
I've heard that concern, and
Okay,
hopefully we can
okay,
address
I
that
just
concern.
bring that up because
Thank you,
we,
sir.
we should work on it earlier rather than later
I totally agree.
if we want to get it done.
His business card's in front of me,
Okay,
at my desk.
okay, thank you.
Mark, my question is, you know, this is a bi-yearly thing we do. Is it biannual?
Biennial?
Biennial, yeah, biennial thing we do. And so I'm wondering about the balance is like, you know, when we take $1 million out of it, and I'm sure there's other things that, you know, come out of that, you know, just for admin and other things. What is, that leaves us on the bottom line?
I don't have those figures in front of me, but we do have there is a significant balance on that as well. And so the reason we expanded it, this is more than we've asked for in the past, is to spend that balance down.
Okay, and that was gonna be my question, does it have capacity to be expanded? But it looks like we're already expanding it this year to $1 million. So it would be nice to see those figures next week, just to kind of get a picture on where we're at and the expansion. Thank you, Mark. Okay, and then item B is the approval of professional services agreements with contractors for
Yeah.
supported employment, high school transition, job foundation, and community.
This is related to the developmental disabilities. This is for your consideration to continue the services with some of the organizations listed in here. And so I had a previous conversation with Mark about this item. Is a total of 5.4 million. We're gonna check to see what the procurement process that we have to go through before this item becomes for your consideration. So this may or may not be on your agenda next Tuesday. But I will work with the staff to make sure that we have taken the necessary steps to procurement process to make sure before the assignment comes before you. But again, is to, I'll get more in detail next week when cross all the Ts and dot all the Is.
Great.
I have questions.
No, go ahead.
I have are we getting a briefing? I had requested a briefing, kind of like as an update on kind of the programs that we have for developmental disabilities, and I'm wondering for
September 7th.
September 7th.
I think 1:30 possibly.
Okay, great. Awesome, thank you.
So the whole of this may or may not be your next week's agenda, but we'll circle back on this one.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, Public Works, item 8A, authorization to issue a request for proposals, RFP for step tank pumping services contract.
Thank you, Madam Chair. As you may know, Public Works operates approximately 250 septic tank systems combined with Boston Harbor and Olympic View. Those two is what we call the step system, where those septic tanks hold the solids, and the fluids are pumped to a drain field, and Olympic View, or perhaps a treatment plant, and on the Boston Harbor. And obviously, we have the responsibility to pump those tanks to remove the solids every so often. In this particular proposal is to receive requests for proposals as to the vendor who can help us to pump those systems. Joe, any additional perspective?
Nothing to add. We would, under this contract, also service Tamishan and Grand Mound utilities kind of on an ad hoc basis for pump station service.
Questions,
Yeah.
Commissioner Edwards?
Is this a contract with an entity other than the county that does this pumping?
Right, so this is to secure the services of a contractor, yes.
And of those 250 total septic tanks that we do, is that an annual issue or like every 5 years, 3 years?
I think it depends. Can you outline the schedule? That's a great question because it's not a yearly operation, but I think it's staggered.
Sure. So it varies by our utilities and by the customer type, but generally in Boston Harbor, we pump the tanks every 6 years. And then in Olympic View, we pump them every 4 years.
And do you make that determination on whether or not to pump, measuring the, I don't know, solids in the bottom, floating solids on top, it adds up to a certain amount, and you need to do something? Is that the way it works?
Actually, for Boston Harbor and Olympic View, we have the tanks on schedules, and so we rotate through those schedules, on either a 4-year or 6-year basis. And if we have a tank that's problematic because we've done routine maintenance out there and we've seen that sludge level's building up, we will pump that as needed.
I guess my concern is that depending on the usage of the tank, a certain amount of product in the tank is beneficial to the workings going on within the tank. Is that making sense to you?
Yes, and that I think you're speaking of, like a septic tank where you're going to a drain field, you want to have, a certain amount of product in there to seed that treatment process.
Yes.
Certainly in the case of Boston Harbor, we're pumping all of that effluent to our wastewater treatment plant, so that's not a concern. For Olympic View, we haven't historically had issues with drain field performance, just pumping on a schedule of, every 4 years.
I guess my concern is, in certain situations, might you be pumping more than you need to pump? Because it takes a certain amount of effluent to make it work properly. So are you going by the year, or, like you're saying 4 years? Or are you actually going out and taking a look? So a tank that had 5 people living in a home, and now things have changed. It's a one-party home or a one-person home, birds out of the nest, whatever, however you want to refer to it at. I'm hoping we're not pumping unnecessarily, causing excessive cost that we really don't need to incur. So I've had no experience on septic systems, so I know a little bit about it. Okay, so that's my question. Are we making sure the need is there? Because if we don't get it right, it won't work properly. The tank won't work properly. The Romans figured this out about 2,000 years ago. So, I mean, there must be a long-standing schedule of what takes place.
We just pump our tanks based on that schedule. The issue with, pumping each tank on an as needed basis is the man hours and staffing resources necessary to do that monitoring, to go out and measure that sludge level would likely exceed the cost of just pumping it per the schedule. I mean, we're talking roughly $500 per tank for a pumping. And we like to sequence those where we can get the truck out there, have them, pump 5 tanks and then haul to a plant. So we have an interest in making sure that the work is clustered, and we're hitting multiple tanks at one time, and the schedule allows us to do that.
I guess I'm not questioning what you guys are doing. I am questioning the time frame and if it's necessary at that point in time and how you calculate that besides a annual or every so many years, because things change, and I hope you would review that. And then my follow-up would be, does Jane Group teach these folks proper septic tank maintenance? Do they go through the system where they talk about, well, don't use this product in your washing machine or you flush this down the drain? And how to measure those two lines that add up to a certain amount. Are we having those folks participate in that? Because I think that's crucial to the success of the program if we're gonna try and make it work. You know the answer to that?
We send out flyers with our utility bills to discuss, items such as feminine hygiene products, wipes, and alert our customers not to put those down the toilet.
Are these people paying for this service out of pocket, or are we paying for it?
We are paying for the service as a utility, and so the service is ultimately paid for by the ratepayers through their sewer rates.
These aren't individual tanks. These are not individual tanks.
These are not individual tanks?
These are our utility.
Oh, wait a minute,
Aren't
I
these our
think they maybe
utilities?
are individual.
These tanks are
Individual.
owned by Thurston County.
But they're individual tanks,
Individual
right?
tanks per property. Yeah, each property
Per
has a,
property.
Properties.
that is the concept of the step system.
Yes.
You know,
I'm aware of that.
the solids remain in the tank and the fluids are pumped into Boston Harbor to the
I
wastewater
see.
utility. And Olympic goes to the community drain field.
Yes.
Just the
Oh, I
fluids,
see.
just the
Okay.
fluids.
My.
So I just want to make sure that we're getting it right for the sake of the ratepayers, if nothing else. I know we've standardized the rates kinda, when we did some consolidation, but could you at least take a look at that and see if and if some of those people couldn't be in attendance to Jane, at least offer up to them? Because even though it's our tank, it behooves us to have them do it right. Because if, depending on the usage, that those two different levels that add up to whether or not we need to pump or not are crucial to maintaining a proper working balance in the tank. So, I don't know, this isn't the right time to drag this out, but could we at least take a look at that?
To be clear, what are you asking us to take a look at, Commissioner?
To make sure we get this right and not have it just on an annualized schedule, because it could be wrong, causing it to be unnecessary, I guess. And actually, if you pump it out when it doesn't need to be pumped out, it's detrimental to the workings that goes on in those tanks.
For our next agenda setting, I can
that class, I think.
I can look at how we develop the 4-year and 6-year schedules.
Okay, thanks. That'll do it for me, cause I'm trouble. Sorry.
You're fine. Questions, Commissioner Munster? Okay. No questions for me on that. Okay. 8B, ordinance updating the Thurston County Water and Sewer Utility Code.
Yeah, Madam Chair, items 8B and 8C are related.
Perfect.
This is related to the overall consolidation plan that you've heard over the last few months related to all the water and sewers combining Grand Mountain, Thompson, Boston Harbor communities. All the different water and sewer into a single utility. And item 8B is for you to approve updating the ordinance related to changing the chapters governing this particular action to achieve the consolidation. In item 8C is the item for your consideration to set the structure of the governance as to how that utility, consolidated utility will be managed. Trying to expedite the conversation. Tim?
Good morning, Commissioners. Nothing to add at this time. The board was briefed on a public hearing related to this item last week. Happy to answer any any questions the board may have.
No questions, thank you.
Okay, no questions for me. With that, we'll move on to PIO check-in.
Good morning, Commissioners. Megan Porter, Public Information Supervisor. I have no specific updates for you today.
I do have an update. We sent a letter to DC Media last Friday, and that was signed by the City of Olympia, City of Water in the county. And I will share a copy of that letter with you, announcing that perhaps the three jurisdictions will not be renewing the contract with DC Media. And you may have public testimony coming up related to that matter.
That letter was also shared with the chair of the board for TC Media.
With the, ooh,
The chair of the board for TC Media.
okay.
Questions?
I mean, this is no surprise to anybody, is it?
No. It's been in the works.
Yeah.
Okay. Proclamations and awards and advisory boards and commissions.
Outside of what's already been discussed, I don't currently have any updates. I'm still waiting to hear back from staff contacts about some appointment applications received for the Racial Equity Council and the Fair Board. We actually received in total as of yesterday, I believe it was 5 Fair Board applications. So I'm just waiting for appointment recommendations from each of those, and then I'll bring those forward for you.
Questions?
No questions, thank you.
Okay. Perfect. So can we do the briefing, the WASDAQ request really quick?
Yeah, you're requested to bring this item back for your consideration. Washington State Association of Counties has requested the county to join an injunctive relief against the ESHS related to the felony flip. You asked at that time how many counties have already joined this effort. In attached for your consideration, all the counties, they have already joined this particular effort, and I think the number of counties are growing. So at this point, I will ask the board for you to consider join this effort. If you decide to do so, I will inform WASDAQ of your decision.
Okay, so thumbs up or thumbs
I'm
down or
good,
questions?
I'm good with it.
Did our prosecuting attorney?
I believe the prosecuting attorney, Elizabeth Petridge, said that most likely John will be supporting
There's no
this effort.
update on that. That's what we heard
There's
last.
not update because he's on vacation.
Okay. So do we want to say yes with, like, maybe waiting for until the prosecutor gets back, and if he's a yes, then we can move forward, and if he's a no, we can have more discussion on it? I don't know.
I thought we're up against the timeline.
We're up against a lot of the timeline.
And my concern is that Elizabeth's been in touch with him and has a pretty good understanding. And these other jurisdictions, to me, I can't imagine that he wouldn't be, but I guess nothing surprises me anymore.
So,
But I'm thumbs up on the whole thing.
Thumbs up, I guess.
okay, so 3 thumbs up on that. Okay, so with that, we'll go ahead and take a break before we come back for executive session. It is 11:05. Can we take a 20-minute break? 20-minute break. Thank you. Okay.
In 3, 2, 1.
Okay, we are back from break. It is 11:31 and we are going straight into executive session. We have two. The first one per RCW 42.30.110, subsection 1I, to discuss with legal counsel representing the agency, litigation or potential litigation to which the agency, the governing body, or a member acting in official capacity is or is likely to become a party. Orlinsky versus Thurston County Corrections, approximately 45 minutes.
You set it up for 30 minutes. If
Oh,
you need to, we can extend it.
Okay, so we'll set it for 30 minutes, and then we have a closed session for RCW 42.30.140, subsection 4A, collective bargaining sessions, or B, that portion of a meeting which the governing body is planning or adopting the strategy or positions to be taken by the governing body during the course of any collective bargaining contracts, and this will take approximately
20 minutes.
20 minutes. Okay, so Ramiro's gonna announce, and And Mary just sent me a message, so. We're back? Okay. We are back from executive session and closed session. We were in two sessions. The first one. We are opening the room. 1 second. So it is 12:13. The first session was per RCW 42.30.110 subsection 1I to discuss with legal counsel representing the agency litigation or potential litigation to which the agency, the governing body, or a member acting in an official capacity is or is likely to become a party. Rolinski versus Thurston County Corrections, and no commissioner's actions follows that session. The second was a closed session per RCW 42.30.140 subsection 4A collective bargaining sessions, or B, that portion of a meeting during which the governing body is planning or adopting the strategy or position to be taken by the governing body during the course of any collective bargaining contracts, and no commissioner's action follows that session. I do have one commissioner item that is for, I apologize to the commissioners. Auditor Hall told me yesterday that there was an appointment for the salary commission. And I believe that the hope was to get this appointment before the next meeting that the salary commission was going to meet at. And so she was requesting that it be added to today's agenda, seeing that we don't really have kind of a say in those appointments just because they're picked from the voters.
It's based on the lottery.
It's based on a lottery.
And that person has
The
accepted.
name,
I believe there was like an AIS submitted. I'm not sure. I'm just kind of bringing this up and seeing if it's okay, if commissioners want to move forward with this today, or do they just want to wait till next week?
What's the time rush?
She just said that, she was hoping that they would be added before the next meeting. So I'm just bringing this request. I do not know.
what, the salary commission next meeting?
Yeah.
This has been scheduled.
I do not know where. So she was requesting that it be added to today's meeting. And I'm happy to ask if she's available if you need to ask questions.
I don't say
I think it's
anyway.
it's pretty simple appointment. If I
Yeah.
think there's a justification, we'll put on the consent agenda, highlighted the change this afternoon. And but we need the name, and do you say that Jamie may have all this?
There's an AIS in the system, I'm looking at it. If Jamie just set the date for today instead of the 22nd.
Okay,
It says
we'll
it's ready
revise the
to go.
agenda for this afternoon.
Mark Grinstaff.
Is he do we know which seat he's taking, like in terms of because aren't there certain seats like business person, lawyer person?
If it's
From
a lottery, it's
District
at
3.
large.
Yeah, all the information's here.
Okay, got it.
As long as it's confirmed that he meets plugs into the spot that's available, then I'm okay with just adding it. Jamie can just double check that.
I'll follow up with Jamie.
Okay, yeah, I do apologize. I completely just blanked on it earlier when we were reviewing our agenda, so I do apologize.
Can I throw one piece of information out there?
Okay.
Not for discussion, just for a heads up. As we're moving forward with our settlement with Summit Lake, it's come to my attention that another potential cut on the other side of Summit Lake is being scheduled, and it actually is legacy trees and forests. So I want to make sure before we finalize anything or move really, I'm gonna look into the mapping, and we may need to direct staff to do the same analysis of potential harm they did that caused us to move forward on the Delica cut, may need to be done for the Star Wagon cut. Maybe it drains some other place and it's not a risk to the Summit Lake community, but if it is, then this really needs to be addressed now, not later. It's gonna have to be addressed one way or the other, but it would be a different approach if it's actually gonna harm the lake water quality and the property owners in the same way Delica was. but it seems that it's an important one to look at, so heads up on that.
And our doesn't stop. Okay. It is 12:17. I thought Commissioner France was gonna come talk to us. Sorry.
Yeah,
just-
we tried to schedule that meeting.
It's in the works.
It's in the works, so, okay. Okay, it is 12:18. We are adjourned.